Hello everybody, welcome to Programming with C++. Today let us see about arrays. What is an array? When you hear the word array, you remember about matrix. Though it's not exactly the same, but we still remember about matrix. Let us see what an array is. Array is a collection of variables of same data type. You know what are variables? Hence, a collection of variables of same data type is called as an array. An array occupies contiguous memory location. In the memory for an array, the memory space is given continuously, and it stores a list of finite number of elements. You actually know how many number of elements are stored in an array, because we actually specify the size of an array when we declare it. For example, if we have variables like a1, a2 up to a10, instead of declaring them separately as int a1, int a2, so on up to int a10 separately, or just int a1 comma a2 3 up to 10, we can just declare it as an array of 10 elements. Hence we have written array a of 10. Here a is the name of the array and the size is 10, because we are using that array to store 10 elements, and it is stored in memory block of 2 bytes, because here we have used integer, and specific element is accessed by its index. What is the index of an array? Actually, here you can see the boxes, right? This represents a memory. In the memory, when we store the elements, 10 elements, that is an array of elements a of 10, we store them separately, like a of 0, a of 1, a of 2 up to a of 9. To store 10 elements, we access them using a of 0, a of 1 up to a of 9. We don't have anything like a of 10. A of 0 represents the first element, a of 1 represents the second element, and so on. In which 0, 1, 2 up to 9 is called the index. That's how we access the elements of the array. How to calculate the array size? Array size is calculated by a formula called upper bound minus lower bound plus 1. What is a lower bound? Lower bound is 0, because usually the first element of an array is a of 0, is at the a of 0th position, and the upper bound is size minus 1. If we are using an array to store 10 elements, we just write it up to a of 9. Hence the upper bound will be size minus 1. Hence, because it's from 0 to size minus 1, we do it plus 1. Hence it is upper bound minus lower bound plus 1. If you're having a of 10 as 10 elements, we used to represent it as a of 0, a of 1, so on up to a of 9. To represent 10 elements, we actually start from the 0th number up to 9. 0 to 9 is 10 elements. Hence, you should remember that a of 10 does not exist. If you try to access an element a of 10, you'll obviously get an error, because such an element does not exist. What are the types of array? We have many types of array, like one-dimensional, two-dimensional, and multi-dimensional. As the name specifies, one-dimensional will be a 1D array, and so on. Let us see them. One-dimensional array is the simplest form of array. All locations are called by the same name. An individual location can be accessed with one index. That is very important. To access one element, we use only one index. And all elements are of same data type is present. That is just the definition of an array. Let us see how to declare an one-dimensional array. The syntax for declaration of a one-dimensional array is data type followed by array name followed by the size within the square braces. Let us take an example. Here we have int a of 10, in which a is the name of the array, 10 is the size. First we declare array of 10 elements. This declares array of 10 elements. First element is stored in a of 0 and second element in a of 1, and so on. And the compiler reserves 10 memory cells, and that should be continuous. Sometimes it's not required to specify the size as well. If you don't feel like specifying the size, you can just leave it empty. Let us see how to assign values to a one-dimensional array. To assign values, we can simply just write int a of 5 equals to, and to write the 5 elements, you can simply just write them within the flower braces separated by comma. Like here, int a of 5 equals to, within flower braces we have 9. Okay, within flower braces we have 9, 2, 7, 6, and 5. Okay, now similarly, let us see how to take input value for array from user. To take the input value, we use a loop. you write, I think you'll be knowing what a loop is. Loop is nothing but repeating some set of statements again and again, or just going through them again. Let us see it. First, we have declared a loop variable int I, and then the number of elements in the array is declared as int n. First, we ask the user to input the number of elements in an array. So this statement gets printed on the output screen. Enter the number of elements in an array, and the user will input the value of n. Like, it can depend according to the user, and that is stored to n. And now we tell the user enter array elements. So the user will input n array elements, and out to store them. We use a for loop for that. This is for the input purpose. For I equals to 0 to n, I plus plus c in a of I. So initially when I is 0, we'll first whatever the user inputs as the first element is stored in a of 0. Next I get initialized, I plus plus happens, hence a of 1 gets stored, and then similarly it goes up to n. Let us see the output of this program. The output is, first the user will ask the program will print the statement enter number of elements in an array, and the user here is inputted 4, and now the user should input 4 elements. Like here we have inputted 4 elements, which is 10, 12, 6 and 30, and the elements are stored in the memory. Like at a of 0, the element 10 is getting stored. At a of 1, the element 12 is getting stored. At a of 2, element 6, and at a of 3, element 30 is getting stored. Let us see how to output the array elements. Similarly, to output an array element also, we use a loop. Like, you can use any loop. Here we have used a for loop because which is simpler to use. Like here we have for I equals to 0 to n, I plus plus. So initially we will print when I is 0, that's the initial value of I, we print a of I. This statement gets executed once, hence a of 0 gets printed, which is 10, and then again I gets incremented, so a of I becomes 1, next a of 1 gets printed. So similarly the output of this program will be 10, 12, 6 and 30. Why is that there is a spacing? That's because here we have a tab, right? That's why we get a tab space between the output. Now let us go to two-dimensional array. Two-dimensional array is a rectangular arrangement of elements in rows and column. Like 1D was just in one dimension, it had only rows. Here you have both row and column, and this is usually called as a matrix. That's why we said when you hear the word array, you remember about matrix. And here you require 2 square braces to specify the size of the array in 2 direction. Like both, you should know how many number of rows is there and how many number of columns are there. Like here in this example we have int marks of 4, 4. That is, it has 4 rows and 4 columns. And similarly int a of 2, 4. Let us see this example in a pictorial representation. Okay, here you have row 0, row 1, column 0, column 1, column 2, column 3. So this first cell represents a of 0, 0. Like you know how it happens in a matrix, same thing happens here. Second cell represents a of 0, 1. And similarly this cell represents a of 1, 2. Let us see how the declaration of the array takes place. It's similar to one-dimensional array, provided there are 2 sizes to be mentioned. Hence we have data type followed by array name, row size followed by column size. And how do you assign the values? Assigning values are also similar, but here you should assign in 2-dimensional, right? Hence if you have a of 2, 4, it means you have 2 rows of 4 columns. Hence within flower braces you can just specify separately the row elements within another flower braces. Like within the outer flower braces you can specify the rows separately by separating with a comma. Let us see how to take input value from user. Input is also done using a suitable loop. Loop can be anything, either you can use a for loop, while loop or anything. In this example we have used a for loop. You can actually use any loop variable. Here we have just used the loop variable as row itself. Like to input, first we have for row equals to 0 to 3 row plus plus, because it is a 2-dimensional array a of 3, 3. And then within that you again have another loop which is for the column, for column equals to 0, column less than 3, column plus plus, and then you input from the user c in a of row column. How does this happen? Initially row will be 0. Once you enter the next loop, column is also 0. So A of 0 0 gets inputted. Next only column gets incremented, hence it becomes A of 0 1. And then column gets incremented up to 3. Hence A of 0 0 0 1 0 2. Those three elements get inputted first. Next this for loop condition fails and it goes to the first for loop and row gets incremented. So similarly, second time what will happen is A of 1 0 will get input from the user. So it will be like A of 1 0, A of 1 1, A of 1 2. That's how the input takes place. Let us see the output of how to output the value of an array element. To output also we use loop variable only. We use loops only. So like here we have used different loop variables like I and j. Like it's the same for I equals to 0 to n I plus plus. Within that you have for j equals to 0 to m j plus plus. Like m is the column and n rows you are having. And like as I said, here both is I is 0 and j is 0. So first time A of 0 0 gets printed. And then like only this one statement is under the second for loop. So after this gets printed, again j gets incremented, so A of 0 1 gets printed. This happens up to the condition j less than m becomes false. When that becomes false, I gets incremented, and then during that time you have an endl. So it means that you go to the next line to print the next row. Let us see an example to understand it better. Okay, in this example, we are first asking the user to enter the number of rows in, like A is of 10 10 is the array, and we ask the user to enter the number of rows in column which is stored in n and m, like similar to the previous example. And then first you enter the array elements, like you know how the input is happening. Like here it is I equals to 0 to n I plus plus. Like this is for the input part, you know how the input is happening. And then how do you print? During the print, what happens is initially j is 0, I is 0 and j is 0. So first time A of 0 0 gets printed. This happens up to the condition j less than m becomes false. Once the condition becomes false, you have cout endl. After that again I gets incremented, not j. So I becomes 1 and again j repeats the values from 0 1 2 up to m. So again I gets incremented to 2 and again j repeats the value. So you'll be printing it in a kind of a matrix because you have endl after this second for loop fails. Okay, let us see the output of this. First, the number of rows and column inputted by the user here is 2 and 3. Like you have 2 rows and 3 columns, and the user inputs these elements as 2 9 4 3 1 2. How does this get stored? This happens in this part, A of ij. So because n is 2 and m is 3, initially I will be 0 and j is 0. At 0 0 the first element gets stored, next 0 1, next 0 2, and then 1 1. So similarly that happens. And then when you print, the first 3 elements get printed. That's because of this statement, which is I is 0 and j from 0 to m it moves. That is from 0 to 3. Hence when I is 0, 0 to 3, that is these 3 elements get printed. And once the second for loop fails, that is j becomes equal to 3, the second for loop fails and you have to go to the next line. That's why you jump, the terminal comes to, the pointer comes to this line, and then again I becomes incremented to 1. When I becomes 1, again j takes the values of 0, 1 and 2, and hence you print these 3 values, which is 3, 1 and 12. So hence the output of this will be 2, 9, 4 in first row, and then 3, 1 and 12 in the second row. Like all this happens only because of the proper spacing and proper adjustment of the loops. So for that you should be knowing the loops properly. Hope you understood the output of this program. Thank you.